Good afternoon. Welcome to Race Matters. My name is Tony Chooks, and today we're going to be discussing 3 ways to make a living. It's very easy to judge somebody when you don't understand how they make a living or what their opportunities are. Now, in any society that you have, whether it be a slave society, a feudalistic society, a capitalistic society like ours, a socialistic society. Regardless, you can even go back to mercantilism, which is what we had before capitalism here in this country. Any of those societies, you have a conundrum that you have to deal with, and that is you have 2 types of people. You have those who work and those who don't work. Simple as that. You have workers and non-workers. Okay? Now, in today's society, in America, we have those. We have 330 million people in this country. And our workforce is, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 180 million. Okay, last time I checked. I think it's somewhere in that neighborhood. So that means there are about 150 million people who don't work. Okay? Now, in this society, we have child labor laws. And so we don't allow 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids to work. So we have to make more, we have to make a surplus to make sure that 180 million people that works in this country has to make more than enough for them if we're going to take care of 320 or 330 million people. Does that make sense? So we have to produce a surplus. And again, it doesn't matter what type of society you are, you have to do that. You have to have some form of what you would call socialism to take care of people who do not work. So I know we've used that as a pejorative term here in this country, socialism or communism. We've used those as pejorative terms, but you have to have some form of socialism in order to take care of, once again, people who don't work. Okay, now we're going to talk about the 3 specific ways that you can make a living in this country. And this is pretty much universal. But in this country, you have 3 ways that you can make a living. Number 1, you can have a job. If you have a job in this capitalist society of ours, then you get up and you go to work for 40 hours a week. So you work whatever shift, whether it be the regular, morning shift from 8 to 5, or with your hour lunch, or you work swing shift from 6 to 2 in the morning, or you work graveyard from midnight to 8. I've worked all of those shifts. Okay? But you're going to work a shift, and you're going to work 40 hours a week, or 35 to 45 hours a week. Whatever the time period. But you're going to do that. And you're going to get a check at the end of a week or 2 weeks, and that's going to be just enough money for you to pay your bills and to keep going. And if you decide to stop working, then you're in big trouble. Most people don't have enough money built up in their savings account or their 401k or their pension plan or whatever it might be to survive. And we've seen that with how we've looked at COVID and how it's ravaged our country for the last 2.5 years. And we see the problems, and we're having to deal with some of those problems now of homelessness and people not having any place to go, and people not having work. And, the government has done some things to help that, but it's a tough situation for lots of people right now. And so, again, as you look at that situation, it is tough. It's tough for people. But that job, that thing that you go to every day, 5 days a week, and some people work 6 days a week, some people work 7 days a week, which that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. But we work a good chunk of time. There are only 168 hours in a week. So if you work 48 hours a week, that's about 23% of a week. So 1/4 of that month or a week is gone just from you working. Then we do lots of things to recover from work, but that's another podcast. Okay, so that's your primary way of making a living, is that thing called a job. Secondarily, you are going to go on social services. If you lose your job, if you do not have a job, then the next step down from that is what we call welfare. Now, I guess now they're calling it SNAP or social service, whatever they want to call it, okay? But the name has changed, but it's still the same thing. Some type of way to help people to make it. Now, when I was a kid, I don't remember there being a whole lot of restrictions on welfare. Once you got on it, you stayed on it. I have relatives who were on welfare when I was a kid, and they're still on it today. Some of them need it. Some of them could do better, in my opinion. But I'm not them, so I'm not going to judge. But that is a way to go. Now, today, it's different. I believe you can only stay on welfare for like 2 years, and then they kick you off. So, like, you better be out there trying to get a job, or else you're in trouble. You're not going to be in a good situation. And of course, when you go on to these, there are all types of stigmas that you have to deal with. Again, when I was a kid, they gave you kind of like monopoly money to go to the store and buy food. And so you'd have to get in line and stand there. And then when you got up there, you didn't have green money. You had monopoly looking money. And those were called food stamps. And you used that. And so everybody knew, hey, look at this guy. This guy's on welfare. So they, today they try to give you some dignity with, if you have incontinence, there's dignity. They're like, hey, we'll deliver these products to your doorstep to give you some dignity instead of you having to go into the store and buy these and everyone's looking at you like, okay, boy, look at your problem. But we didn't really do that when I was a kid, growing up in the 60s. And so people got stigmatized when they took in these social services. But that's the second way to be able to make a living, is to go on welfare. Now, again, in today's world, you can only be on welfare for so long. You can only be on it for, again, I think it's 2 years. And when you look at that system, I know I have some friends who were laid off of work, and they say one of the criteria is that you have to prove that you're looking for a job. And I know when it comes to black people, if you live in a black neighborhood, there aren't a lot of jobs. There just aren't. If you've listened to some of my other videos, in most places where black people live and are concentrated in high effects, we don't own the businesses in our neighborhoods. And so we don't have the ability to be able to hire people and give people jobs because we don't own the businesses. We don't own and control the things that are in our neighborhoods. And so if you're going to the hood and you're looking for a job and you're looking for somebody that looks like you to give you one, good luck finding that person. I'm not saying they don't exist, but they don't exist nearly as much as they would in a white neighborhood or even an Asian neighborhood or a Hispanic neighborhood. They do not exist in black neighborhoods. So that's something that you've got to deal with. So again, we have the first level, which is the job, the second level, which is social services or welfare, and then the next and final level you can fall to if you can't make it on either one of these, it's called crime. And see, guys, I'm saying this because I want us to understand when we start talking about crime, so many times, again, we stigmatize that. And we just make it look like people are just terrible people and they don't care. No, they're desperate people. Now, I'm not saying there aren't criminals out there. I'm not saying there aren't people that are bad of all walks of life that are out there. But I do have compassion for people who have been criminalized because most of those people look like me. Most of those people look like me. And it's sad when I look at that because I'm going, okay, you're to the level of crime now and you're trying to make a buck. And I remember my mother saying something to me that I now understand, and I understood it when she told me. I understand it greater now. But I think I was about 12 years old, and my mother told me, I love you. She had 4 boys. My mother had 4 boys. And she said, I love you boys so much that I would sell my body to take care of you. Again, I was 12 years old. I knew what that meant. And I was like, wow, my mother really loves me. Well, selling your body, that's called prostitution, and that's a crime. But my mother said she would revert to crime if she had to take care of us. And so many times we scoff at criminals because we don't know the situation. If your kid was sitting at home crying and said, Mommy, I don't have anything to eat and I don't have anything to drink, and you had nothing to give your kid. And a guy said, if you take this drug down the street and hand it to this person, I'll give you $20. Any mother who loved their children would do that. I don't care what color you are. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what. Any mother who actually loved her children would do that. And so crime, guys, that's a place sometimes where we go because there's no place else to go. It's not a decision. It's not somebody that says, hey, man, I've got this great job and I'm doing fantastic. Hey, but, if I go over here and sell crack, I can make more money. Let's go do that. No, it's usually the desperate person who says, I have no other choices. I've tried a job. I got kicked off of the social services, and I have to go back on that. Now, the other person that's going to go to crime is going to be that person who comes out of jail. Because once you come out of jail, you've been criminalized. And most likely, if you look like me, you're a felon. And once you're a felon, you basically are taken out of life. Well, I'll do a podcast on that one of these times because I think it's fascinating to see what happens to a felon. But felons, they can't vote. They can't have certain government jobs. They can't apply for certain types of licenses. They can't hold bank accounts. So many things they can't do. How are they supposed to survive? What are they supposed to do when you take them out of literally being a human being and then you expect them to make it? You throw them in jail and you put them in a hole and you isolate them and you treat them like garbage, and then you say, okay, 30 years is up, you can go now. You didn't rehabilitate them, you didn't give them an education, you did nothing but make a bunch of money off of them. Come on. Now, I'm not sitting here saying, feeling sorry for criminals, people who do things bad, but criminal is a term that I don't get to define. I don't get to say what a criminal is. And I certainly don't get to say what the punishment is for a criminal. But I just want to look at these three ways, guys. I just want to give you some context in looking at these things, because so many times when you hear crime or criminal, you just think automatically a terribly bad person. I don't think my mom's a terribly bad person, but she was willing to commit a crime to take care of me because she loved me. Thank you so much for listening.